The top business stories live from the Sky Newsroom. Inflation jumps more than forecast to its highest rate in over a year, rocking the currency and bond markets. While the heir to the JCB empire is betting big on hydrogen. Plus, consumer spending on this summer's Oasis tour is expected to top £1 billion, beating Taylor Swift's UK records. Good afternoon. On this Wednesday, Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. Well, inflation has jumped more than forecast to the highest in over a year after households were hit by a raft of price increases in April. That's caused traders to slash bets on further base rate cuts, postponing potential mortgage price cuts. Well, Paul Kelso has been in Birmingham speaking to people feeling the cost of living pinch.
The cost of living squeeze is turning into a marathon, not a sprint. Inflation in April was the highest rate in more than a year, driven by an increase in household bills and no surprise to mothers in Moseley in Birmingham.
We've felt the pinch and we definitely have had to make cutbacks in other places.
Yeah, there's been months where we have had to ask for help for mortgage costs, the bills, everything has just crept up.
Like, compared to how much I used to spend before, even with an extra mouth to feed, it's just ridiculous how much you spend on food, like energy bills, or everything really.
CPI inflation rose to 3.5% in April, the highest rate since January last year and well above the Bank of England's 2% target. Energy, water and mobile and broadband bills all jumped by more than £100 on average. Add a similar council tax rise and Sky News analysis shows households facing an average annual increase of £448. Unavoidable for bill payers and awkward for the Chancellor.
The numbers today are clearly disappointing. We want to see inflation coming down after the cost of living challenges that people have been through this last few years. Clearly, we're in a different place to where we were under the previous government, where inflation got into double digits. But we recognise the cost of living is still a challenge.
The Chancellor's decisions have changed the big picture too. Increases to employers' national insurance and the minimum wage mean every employee at Hogarth's Hotel in Solihull costs at least 28p a minute, which all adds up to tough choices.
Overall, it costs us about £2,500 per person extra this month than it did last month.
So if your costs have gone up, your fixed costs have gone up, what are your options in terms of passing on those costs?
Well, we have to stop spending money in other areas, so inevitably we will reduce the number of people we employ because we have no choice. We just can't afford to keep the business going at the moment.
This surge was expected and may be the peak, and for now, pay is keeping pace with prices.
Officially, wages are rising faster than inflation. The Bank of England expect this spike to ease as the year goes on, but with Donald Trump having turned global trade upside down, even they can't be certain.
A cost of living crisis that began before these little athletes were born may have a way to run yet. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Well, let's get more on this and see how the markets are reacting this afternoon. Emma Wall is with us. Emma, always a pleasure. First of all, how have the markets reacted to this quite significant jump in inflation?
Well, first on the news, we saw gilt yields really spike, and indeed the pound spike against other currencies. And this is very much to do with the expectation of what this above expected inflation rate will mean for interest rate cuts. So thinking back only just a week ago, there was a 70% expectation priced in that we'd have a cut in June. That then came down after we had the rate cut last week, and indeed that press conference which gave some forward guidance. But the market was still thinking that we'd get a rate cut in August. Now, from today's news, that probability of a rate cut in August has gone very much from over 50% to under 50%, and the market is now pricing in just one 25 basis point cut through to the end of the year, which is a very, very different situation from where we were back in December, where 4 interest rate cuts were being priced in through 2025.
And that in part, Emma, is because we're expecting this inflation to remain relatively sticky, with the expectation that it may well not fall back to target until 2027.
Absolutely. I think what's really interesting here is not so much that inflation rose, but it rose so much above expectations. So 2.6 last month, 3.5 this month, but above the 3.3 expected. Now, although it's very difficult for households, that household inflation was expected because we knew about the energy price cap being cap coming up. We knew about water bills going up. But what you look under the hood, what wasn't expected is the services inflation, and that has come up quite significantly to above 5%. So, and services inflation tends to be stickier, whereas those one-off household bill increases should come through the system. And the thing is here is this is before we've even started to think about the impact of the trade war on inflation. So our house view is actually that inflation remains higher through the next 3 months at least, as we start to see the impact of what the US trade war, particularly with the EU, where rhetoric remains very negative. And of course, in the last couple of days, we now have even closer trade ties with the EU. So we expect inflation, unfortunately, to stay higher for a little bit longer.
And Emma, just very briefly, we should talk about M&S if we can. It's not been great recently, but they've had somewhat of a bumper year.
They have indeed. It was really interesting because actually for 11 months of the last 12 months, M&S had really stonking sales. And then, of course, they had that cyber attack in last month, which really completely derailed. And in fact, they're still losing around 40 million in sales a week. But the share price has gone up on those full year results because of the strength in those 11 months.
Emma, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. And you can get more on that M&S story, including my thoughts that we're all going to have to pay for these hacks as consumers, on the Sky News Money blog. All you need to do is scan the QR code that's on your screen right now, and that will take you to the Sky News app. Now, hydrogen was once touted as a solution to the UK's energy woes, but the scaling of the energy sources proved difficult. Avril Green, entrepreneur, grandson of Lord Bamford and heir to the JCB empire, that's Joe Bamford, has doubled down on his commitment to scale hydrogen energy production. Well, let's speak to Joe, who is executive chairman of Hydra B Group. Very good afternoon to you, Joe. I suppose my first question is it fair for me to say that we had this kind of big drive towards hydrogen, 5-10 years ago. In the last couple of years, it does seem to have come off the boil a little, become a little less fashionable. Is that fair?
Well, to an extent, so has net zero. We are trying to find solutions for customers that replicate their behaviour and ultimately cost the same. And a lot of the things are a bit of a faff at this point in time. But look, we are talking today about a project of national significance that addresses a number of those problems. We're talking about 25,000 new jobs, 6.5 billion of investment, but also we're talking about preserving jobs, because foundation industries like cement, glass, brewing, etc., you can't electrify those processes. You're going to need to have gas to make them work. And there's 2 million people employed in those industries in the UK. And what happens if you can't find a solution to them? Those industries start leaving quite quickly. And when they're gone, they don't come back easily.
And where is the UK, Joe, do you reckon, when it comes to being at the forefront of this hydrogen game? I mean, where are we internationally? Do you think the government is doing enough?
Look, we've been asked to submit this to the government, which we have done a few weeks ago, and of course we're around trying to promote it and trying to be heard. It would be very nice to meet the Chancellor and say, wouldn't you like 25,000 jobs and you preserve a number of jobs? But energy transition is the most exciting and single highest reallocation of capital probably in our lifetime. And we, the UK, need to be able to embed those jobs up and down the country. If you're trying to play catch-up on batteries where China's got 85% market share, speaking as a manufacturer and as an engineer, that's a very difficult process. But you can do the same thing that China did with batteries and drive up the volume in the world of hydrogen and embed those jobs up and down the country.
And just finally, Joe, as you say, you're hoping to create lots of jobs here. Your family clearly are a job powerhouse in this country and a big manufacturer. What do you think about Labour's handling of the economy? I mean, we're getting a bit of a mixed picture in terms of inflation today, but, we had pretty robust growth at the start of this year.
So, look, the last time I was on this show where we're talking about right bus. And, you know, I bought a business out of bankruptcy 5 years ago. We had no employees. We've now got 2,500 employees in Northern Ireland, in Ballymena, and we're growing that. That's both supported both by Labour and also by the Tory government. But you need to have joined up thinking in each part of the supply chain. When it comes to talking about the Labour government, I think there's some things they're doing very well and some things, of course, you know, that maybe they're not. And the Tories were exactly the same. My job is to try and provide long-term jobs here for my employees and to give them solutions that they really would like to have and to embed those jobs in the British economy.
OK, Joe, appreciate your time this afternoon. Joe Bamford there. Thank you. Now, Taylor Swift was credited with notably boosting GDP when she embarked on her tour last year. This summer, the Oasis reunion is predicted to top £1 billion in consumer spending and maybe beat Mrs Smith's record of the highest grossing tour of all time. So what effect could it have on the UK economy and, indeed, on that sticky inflation? Let's speak to Tom Corbett, Managing Director of Sponsorships and Media at Barclays. Tom, very good afternoon to you. I mean, there's little doubt that Oasis have been popular this summer. I mean, many people struggle to get hold of tickets. Are we going to see a significant economic boost, do you reckon, from this tour?
Well, look, and absolutely, as you say, I mean, we're estimating an investment of more than £1 million into the long-awaited reunion tour. I think each attendee planning to splash out more than £766. So I think it's safe to say that we will. And as you said, you know, we certainly saw reports last year around the Eras tour to the extent that it may have been a factor in the Bank of England's decisions. You know, the short answer is we don't know ultimately, but what we do know is that this continues to be a really top performing area of non-essential spending, certainly for our customers that we're talking to at the moment.
And isn't that the interesting thing, Tom? Because, you know, today we're talking about inflation and, you know what, it's a possibility that maybe these tickets might add to inflation in this country. But we're also talking about the squeeze on people's spending and the cost of living that they're experiencing in this country. And yet people seem to be still willing to spend money when it comes to real experiences that stand out like an Oasis concert.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this is something that we've been looking at over the last couple of years, and we've been tracking consumer spending, many of the big tours like the Eras tour, like Oasis now, and we call it the experience economy. So what our consumers are telling us is that they're prioritising their money. They want to spend it on more memorable experiences, on things like live events, like concerts, like holidays, like live sport, less material possessions. Of the people that we've recently spoken to this year, over 50% of them said they'd rather spend their money on making memories than they would buying possessions.
Yeah, really fascinating, isn't it? That people kind of habits, if you like, in terms of what they're prepared to spend their money on is changing. Just in terms of the controversy around it a little bit, because there has been quite a lot in terms of those ticket prices. Are you hopeful that in many regards that doesn't happen again? Because it does somewhat detract from these concerts when, you know, people feel that they're being ripped off, frankly.
Yeah, look, of course, we're hopeful that that doesn't happen. And I think the thing that we're most interested in is the broader influence and impact it's going to have on the economy in the UK. You know, we know around that total spend I gave you of £766, you've got the ticket costs within it, but you've also got money flowing into accommodation providers in the UK, into transport, into food and beverage. So the impact overall should be significant.
Yeah, indeed. And as you say, it's going to benefit not just Oasis, of course, particularly, or indeed the stadiums that they're playing in, but people will be travelling up and down the country. Just and also in terms of a wider kind of note beyond Oasis, do we have any sense of how much that experience economy, probably particularly in the summer months, is a boost to the British economy?
Yeah, look, it's difficult for us to know whether consumers have stopped spending somewhere else.
Yeah.
To use that money and spend on these experiences. So at this stage, we're just predicting the level of consumer spending, not can't give you a definitive answer around the actual impact that will have.
OK, Tom, thank you for your time. And you never know, Oasis might cause some mini earthquakes as well, with people jumping around like Taylor Swift did last year. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Pleasure.
Tom Corbett there from Barclays. OK, you're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Coming up next, we'll be asking why small and medium-sized businesses are stockpiling dollars to help offset tariff pressures. That is up next here on Business Live.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first.
Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
1,500 movies. I don't want this flight to end. Fly better. Thank you.
Welcome back to Business Live here on Sky News. Just to say this is the live scene outside the Oval Office at the White House. We're expecting the South African president to visit Donald Trump any minute now. The meeting comes, of course, as President Ramaphosa has called for a group of 59 South Africans who've moved to the US to resettle as cowards. I think they've been offered amnesty in the United States, and Elon Musk had claimed that was a genocide of white farmers taking place in South Africa, claimed that's obviously widely discredited. That will clearly, I would have thought, come up in talks between the South African president and Donald Trump. Trade will also be on the agenda, with South Africa on the receiving end of 30% tariffs. We will bring you those pictures, of course, as soon as President Ramaphosa turns up at the White House to meet Donald Trump. Now, small UK businesses are buying massive amounts of dollars. That's according to new data from payments platform Airwallex, who today announced a $300 million fundraise. The findings also show an uptick in businesses buying euros as they seek to hedge their risks against a volatile US. Well, let's speak to Amy Spence, former manager at Microsoft and currently the vice president of Airwallex. Very good afternoon to you. Just first of all, give us a sense of what you guys do.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Darren. So Airwallex, we provide global financial infrastructure to help businesses move money without borders.
OK, and that is because at the moment, you would argue that your competitors are charging rather large fees to do so.
Yeah, I think there's that, and I think a lot of global money movement is still very much in the traditional banking realm, and we work with a lot of SME businesses, small UK businesses who want to go global, and they're not necessarily able to participate in the rates, for example, of a huge multinational. So we play a big role in that regard.
Yeah, and to be fair, you have managed to raise quite a lot of money recently.
Yeah. I mean, look, we definitely had a slice of cake in the office today to celebrate, and look, it's our first round since 2022. The funding landscape is very different to 3 or 4 years ago, particularly for a fintech. So, whilst we know our business is very strong, continues to grow, it's really good to get the validation, obviously, from the market, from our investors. But internally, look, we're very much heads down, building for the next phase of growth.
And it does seem that people UK businesses are buying lots of dollars. Do we have any real sense why that is and how long the trend's been going on for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of turbulence in the market, especially for small businesses, tariffs, trade deals, all of these things. I think fundamentally for UK businesses, there's kind of two plays, right? One is the UK businesses will see the US as a valid expansion market, so they will need to have currency for that. I think a lot of what we're seeing is money being paid to the US. So if you think about it from a business perspective, you are going to be paying things like advertising to Google and Meta, as well as your software spend and things like that. And that's not going to go away, right? The US dominates in that regard. So I think, right now, for sure, I think it's been a very buzzy time, I think, to have US dollars and hold them for those reasons.
OK. Well, good luck with the business. I hope it goes well. Amy Spence there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. OK, well, that is it for me on Business Live for this afternoon. We are, of course, back tomorrow morning at 11:30. Mark Austin is up next with the News Hour here on Sky News, including coverage from the White House, where we are expecting the South African President Ramaphosa to arrive there any minute now, meeting, of course, with Donald Trump. Been a bit of tension between South Africa and the US in recent weeks, not just about trade, but also about allegations around the treatment of white farmers in that country. Stay tuned on Sky News for that and indeed the rest of the day's news coming up at 5 p.m. I will see you tomorrow at 11:30. Have a very good afternoon. Goodbye.